Krishna Pristaya Bhutale. I'm in a weird key. Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devam Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavani Paschatya Deshatarine Namaste Saraswate Devam Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavani Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama one more short song. My son-in-law's favorite melody. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Wow, Prabhuji, I love that theme, the last one. Awesome. So nice. I was just dancing here. Wow.
Yeah,
Should I
it
just
comes from, I have to give credit where credit's due. There's a song we did, what is that? Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Shri Radhe. It's a Braj Bas. It's in Braj Bas. It's in and it's in the second song of the Vaishnavacharyas. It's not a particular Vaishnavacharya that I know, but the melody is so beautiful that I thought I have to find a part of it at least they can put to the Hare Krishna mantra because it's such a sweet raga, you know.
yes. And Mataji also played a very nice mridanga.
Yeah, she's very good.
Thank you.
She's over here.
Hare Krishna. Yes. Hare
And that's
Krishna.
my son-in-law.
Yes. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you so much. You played nice mridanga, Mataji. Very nice. Thank you. So, would you like to sing the Jayarada Madhav, or should I just make some quick announcement and then get into the lecture? Totally
Yeah,
up to you.
what do you want? What would you like to do?
I would just leave on you, Prabhuji. It's like 6:04. If you can get it done, Jayarada Madhava. It's only 6:04. So if you can get it done, Jayarada Madhava, in 5-6
Okay.
minutes, then you should do it. We want to hear Kirtan also from you.
Okay, let's do it.
Ji.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaratari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaratari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Hare Krishna, everybody. I welcome you all to our Sunday Feast virtual lecture. Today we have a very special guest. We are very honored to have His Grace Panchatattva Prabhu with his family. So that's so nice. That's so nice. So I'm sure that many devotees who resides in St. Louis are very familiar with Panchatattva Prabhu. Prabhu is a very senior devotee, very senior. He has started somewhere around 1977, 1978. So almost 43, 44 years Prabhu has been in the movement and he has served various capacity. He was at some point temple president for ISKCON St. Louis. Thank you so much Prabhuji, for your service. And also, he is one of the famous Kirtaniya. And we have done tons and tons of programs with Prabhuji, especially on Janmashtami. When we have Nam Yagya, we had invited Prabhuji multiple times. And this year also, I'm trying to see Prabhuji around. He can come and do Nam Yagya. Also, whenever we had Rath Yatra, we invited Prabhuji to come, give the lecture, and do some kirtan also. So very famous kirtaniya, and all of you just heard, Prabhuji did, so beautiful kirtan, totally immersed. That's what I was seeing, completely immersed into the melody and beauty of Harinam Sankirtan. So that's wonderful, Prabhu. So nice to really see you after such a long time chanting. And I remember the time, when we were chanting together in the temple. Prabhu has done multiple service, and one of the service that he has been doing, along with chanting, book distribution. That has been his service all the way. He was residing somewhere close to us, but now he has moved away somewhere in Florida, close to New Ramanurati. Prabhu, even if you have moved away, but you are still part of the St. Louis family. We never think that you are far away. And whenever something comes, we always think, okay, how we can invite Panchatattva Prabhu to come here. All the devotees here on the call, they're very excited to see you. And I'm sure that there will be so many personal interactions and questions once we get to that QA session. So we can start the lecture, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Back to you.
I will just say one thing at this point, that my instructing guru, His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami, is very keen on me getting into the Vanaprastha ashram, where I won't be sitting in one place for very long. So maybe I'll come to St. Louis sometime. Hare Krishna. Let me move this computer. Okay. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yes, very clear. No problem at all.
I'm using the built-in microphone of this laptop, so I just had to test it maybe a little bit. Well, Hare Krishna. Where to begin? I have one of the incredible sinking office chairs, where the hydraulic post on it wears out, and every once in a while, if you see me go down like this, it's because my chairs. I may just end up staying down there because you get tired of pulling yourself back up again. It's kind of like the material world, you go up and down and up and down. I'm doing it in the same body though, so that's a little different. Should we begin our talk? What do you want to do, Ramacharya Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji, yes, we can begin the talk, Prabhuji, yes.
Okay. I've been reading I've been thinking about this talk for a while. These are such strange times, as you already know. I'm sure it's been something of a topic of discussion at more than a few virtual sanghas. What we have to all go through together. But let me just say at the outset, I won't dwell on that subject because we want to talk about Krishna. And the material world is definitely an important subject in terms of its relationship with Krishna and our understanding of how to get out of this mess that we're in, because it's a big mess, you know. The thing is, before this pandemic began, it was a big mess. And after this pandemic goes away, it'll also be a big mess because for the most part, people aren't interested in putting Krishna in the center. You know, they don't recognize Krishna as Yajna, the beneficiary of all sacrifices and activities. They don't see God in that way. Or if they do, it's kind of a fuzzy vision where what they're really thinking is what can Krishna do for me? There was a John F. K. famous phrase by John F. Kennedy, one past president, who said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." So unfortunately, we've got things a little bit wrong. Instead of country, it's God. And the tendency is for people to think, ask not, they tend to think, ask not what I can do for God, but what God can do for me. They get everything in reverse. Kennedy was on to something, but he just had the wrong thing in there, country. So we need to put God in the center, God-centered civilization. And if that becomes the case, then these types of mass karmic reactions, they will be the exception rather than the rule. Right now, they're the rule. If it's not one thing, it's another. So this one's the other. It's a thing that nobody expected. So let's talk a little bit about Krishna. I was reading fourth canto Srimad Bhagavatam the other day, or more appropriately, my wife was reading in fourth canto. And she said, I have this really great verse. You got to hear this. And purport. So she read the verse and the purport to me. And this was several days ago. And I thought, well, that might be nice. And in the fourth canto, we know that Dhruva Maharaj has his activities described in great detail. And I'm sure that most of you have heard of Dhruva Maharaj. He was the son of Maharaj Uttanapad, who was the son of Swayambhuva Manu. Right, at the beginning of this day of Manu, you had Maharaj Uttanapad, and Dhruva was inconsolable because he was prevented from sitting on the lap of his father, who was the king of the world. And in response to this affront, which was caused by an envious stepmother, Suruchi, he vowed that he would have a kingdom greater than his father's, greater than even Lord Brahma's. And anyway, it's a somewhat detailed history. I'm sure many of you know it. Dhruva Maharaj, he went off to perform austerities on the advice of his own mother, who was very, very grief-stricken that he should be mistreated in such a way, and who was also very unhappy that he should go out to the forest, but that's what he decided to do because he understood that the only way that I can deal with this problem is to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the course of that story, Narada Muni finds out from the Lord within the heart that Dhruva Maharaj has determined to do this. And so he follows him. He goes to where he's staying in the forest and first tests him by suggesting in various ways that he shouldn't put his mind to this. This is something that's not a necessary thing to be doing at your age. Besides, you should be peaceful and not affected by other people's insults and dishonor and infamy and so forth. But Dhruva Maharaj has a Kshatriya nature, and he's saying, I'm sorry, I know that you're the greatest speaker of devotional service and you're a great saintly personality, but these words don't stay in my heart that you're speaking. So once Narada Muni has tested him and seen that he's absolutely determined, he gives him instructions on how to perform devotional service to achieve his desires. There are some interesting purports there where Srila Prabhupada is explaining that although it's an inferior reason to approach the Lord, even persons with all kinds of material desires, up to and including desiring the greatest kingdom in the world or the universe, should approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead in devotional service. The side effect, or perhaps the main effect of such devotional service, if it's sincerely engaged in, is that one realizes that all attempts at material enjoyment are actually a pile of worthless, rocks compared with obtaining the development of love of Godhead and pure devotional service. And that's there in the story of Dhruva Maharaj. Later on, when Dhruva Maharaj has achieved success in his austerities and he's gained actual darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he goes back to the kingdom of his father, who then retires from the throne and places Dhruva Maharaj on the throne. He rules for 36,000 years, something like that, with the blessing from the Supreme Lord that his vigor, his intelligence, his strength, and so forth will not be diminished, even with the passage of time, for all that period. And in the end, he'll go back to Godhead. While he's engaged in ruling over the kingdom, his brother Uttama goes to the forest and is killed by a yaksha. The yakshas, Prabhupada explains in one purport, are somewhat related to tribes living in the north in the Himalaya. Only these yakshas are very powerful. They're all the servants of Kuvera, the heavenly treasurer, the demigod of wealth. And because this yaksha killed his brother, he decides to take revenge upon him and all the yakshas, and he goes to their city and lays siege to it and attacks the yakshas. And there's a ferocious fight that ensues. And Kuvera is disturbed. And the word reaches Swayambhuva Manu, his grandfather, who sees that this is actually a really bad situation because in his anger, Dhruva is killing so many innocent yakshas when there was one person who had killed his brother. So he goes to that place and he speaks this wonderful series of instructions to Dhruva Maharaj, which are recorded in the 11th chapter of the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. There are a couple of nice verses here that I wanted to go over with everybody and invite questions and comments, please. And we'll see where it goes from there. How's everybody feel about that? Nobody has their mic on. What do you think, Ramacharya Prabhu?
Prabhuji, totally how you'd like to handle. So whatever you find suitable for class tonight, we should be good with that.
Okay. Well, this is, if you want to follow along, any of you who have the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is 4th canto, 11th chapter, text number 18. 18 and 19 we're going to cover. I've had the good fortune of spending 3 nights a week in a Srimad Bhagavatam class from it was from 8 till 9 o'clock. Now it's from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Listening to discourse by His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. And of course, in that class, we're in 2nd canto, in the 9th chapter of 2nd canto of Bhagavatam, the big Chatusloki verses, which are like the core of the kernel of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which are spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to Lord Brahma. And really, really nice discussion about those verses, understanding Krishna's position and the position of all of the living entities and the material energy, and very nicely explained. All right, so this is text 18. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. That's actually a very wonderful mantra. Incidentally, it is the mantra that was given by Narada Muni to Dhruva Maharaj for his practice of mystic yoga and then devotional service to the Lord. He was given this mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sakalvidam Bhagavan Kala Saktya Gunapravahena Vibhakta Viryaha Karotya Kartayava Nihantya Hanta Cheshta Vibhumna Kaludur Vibhavya. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his inconceivable supreme energy, time, causes the interaction of the three modes of material nature, and thus varieties of energy become manifest. It appears that he is acting, but he is not the actor. He is killing, but he is not the killer. Thus it is understood that only by his inconceivable power is everything happening. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The word divabhavya means, quote, inconceivable by our tiny brain. And vibhaktavirya means, quote, divided in varieties of potencies. Brings to mind the verse, Parasya Shaktir Vibhaiva Shruyate. Things are going on automatically by just the will of the Supreme Person. This is the right explanation of the display of creative energies in the material world. We can better understand the mercy of God by an example. A government state is always supposed to be merciful, but sometimes, in order to keep law and order, the government employs its police force, and thus punishment is meted out to the rebellious citizens. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always merciful and full of transcendental qualities, but certain individual souls have forgotten their relationship with Krishna and have endeavored to lord it over material nature. As a result of their endeavor, they are involved in varieties of material interaction. It is incorrect to argue, however, that because energy issues from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is the actor. In the previous verse, the word nimitta matram indicates that the Supreme Lord is completely aloof from the action and reaction of this material world. How is everything being done? The word inconceivable has been used. It is not within the power of one's small brain to comprehend unless one accepts the inconceivable power and energy of the Lord. One cannot make any progress. The forces which act are certainly set up by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he is always aloof from their actions and reactions. The varieties of energies produced by the interaction of material nature produce the varieties of species of life and the resultant happiness and distress. It brings to mind that verse from Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, number 14. Namam karmani limpanti name karma palespriha itimam yoga jananti karmavir nasa bhadyate. There's no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. And then Krishna goes on to explain that if one understands this about me, he's also not affected by the fruit of reactions of work. And Prabhupada explains in the purport why he's not affected, that person who understands that about Krishna. I mean, it's fine to say, oh yeah, Krishna, yeah, he's not affected by anything. But actually, if you're a Krishna conscious person, you come to that platform because your activities are entirely devoted to and dovetailed in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So your activities become free from material bondage. They become free from that platform of action and reaction. They become akarma. So this is what what Krishna is referring to when he says that. A person who understands this about me. That's actually understanding versus just knowing something or repeating something. Understanding means realizing, taking into one's life, following with great attention and care. That's understanding, you know? So, are there any comments or questions at this point? This will help keep everybody alive and interacting I've been a part of quite a few Zoom meetings of various stripes. And one of the worst things is for the speakers to just drone on. if everybody's camera is on, you can see people going, oh. So does anybody have any comment or question about this and realization they'd like to share? We're talking about how Krishna's position as manifesting this whole material world, setting in motion the three modes of material nature and so forth, is still completely above it. He's still above the material energy. He's not affected by it. Swayambhuva Manu is telling, he's actually, what Swayambhuva Manu is doing here is contrasting Krishna with Dhruva. Because Dhruva's just been killing like anything. But he's saying, Dhruva, look at the Supreme Person. He's killing, but he's not the killer. You're killing and you are the killer. You don't want to be on that platform. You want to be on the transcendental platform. Remember Krishna. Remember your Lord. And don't be engaged don't be overwhelmed by anger. Any comments or questions? Or shall we go on?
It's very beautiful, basically, context, Prabhuji. This is you selected very powerful, part of the Bhagavatam where it's being proven that Krishna is the ultimate cause.
Yeah, he's the cause, and at the same time, he's not implicated. He's like nimitta matram. It's mentioned later on. He's nimitta matram. He's the remote cause. He's seen to it. He's seen to it that we have the facilities to pursue our desires, and our desires and the subsequent activities based upon our desires. Those are what are causing all these immediate causes and effects and entangling us and so forth in both pious and impious activities. But Krishna is not responsible for that. We're responsible for that. I'm sure that in some remote corner of the world, and I'm being sarcastic, people are blaming God for our current situation, this pandemic. But that's not God. That's us. This is a reaction. That's why Krishna consciousness, as ever, is the most important gift of enlightenment for the entire human society, because these types of things are happening because of our ignorance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyway, let's continue. How the Lord acts is nicely explained in the Vishnu Purana. And it's explained thus: fire is situated in one place, while the heat and light produced by the fire act in many different ways. I found that verse. It's one that I don't know. Ekadesha stitasyagner jyotsna vistarini yata parasya brahmana shaktis tatedam akilam jagat is Vishnu Purana 1.22.53. Ekadesha stitasya gner jyotsna vistarini yata parasya brahmana shaktis tatedam akilam jagat. And the translation runs, just as the illumination of a fire which is situated in one place is spread all over, just as the illumination of a fire which is situated in one place is spread all over, the energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Parabrahman, are spread all over the universe. Another example given is that the electric powerhouse is situated in one place, but by its energies, many different types of machinery move. The production is never identical with the original source of the energy, but the original source of the energy being the prime factor, the single important beginning factor, is simultaneously one and different from the product. Just like we have an electric stove here. We wanted a gas one, we got an electric stove. But the electric stove in this house is connected by cable and, power station and so forth, ultimately to a generating station. In one sense, by its energy, the generating station is in a way one with or identical with the stove. But in another sense, you can't say the stove is the generating station. It's not possible. They're different. So Prabhupada's using this simple example to explain Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya's philosophy, Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, is the perfect way of understanding. In this material world, the Lord incarnates in three forms, as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, by which he takes charge of the three modes of material nature. By his incarnation of Brahma, he creates. As the incarnation of Vishnu, he maintains. And by his incarnation of Shiva, he also annihilates. But the original source of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, is always apart from these actions and reactions of material nature. And Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are all nicely described summarily in the Brahma Samhita. Very nice verses. You can refer to them for further illumination on the subject. So that's that verse. Swayambhuva Manu is giving a lot of instruction to Dhruva Maharaj. Basically, it kind of starts with a statement that's quite similar to Krishna's statement to Arjuna at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. How have these impurities come upon you? Swayambhuva Manu is also saying to Dhruva, how you put yourself in this position where you're killing, innocent people. In Arjuna's situation, he was refusing to kill people who were responsible because the Lord and basically neglecting the Lord's instruction. In Dhruva Maharaj's situation, he's taken it upon himself to get revenge upon the Yakshas, and in that sense, he's neglecting the Lord's general orders to saintly persons or persons engaged in pure devotional service. So Swayambhuva Manu, quickly brings him back to his senses and reminds him, you have a place in Vaikuntha waiting for you. Please don't disturb your situation here. You're a pure devotee, you're engaged in pure devotional service. Pull yourself away from this, errant activity. Later on, it's explained that by Kuvera himself, that nothing wrong has really happened because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is directing everything, especially the movements of his pure devotees. But anyway, that's another subject. Now, text 19. Text 19 is the verse that my wife pointed to that I thought was really nice. It's not very long, and it's a little bit topical without wandering too much into the whole, current events thing, which some classes can turn into, and I don't want that to happen here because, well. So text 19 runs, Sunanton tat karakalo anadiradi krid avyayaha janam janena janayan maryan mrityunantakam. My dear Dhruva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is ever existing, but in the form of time, he's the killer of everything. He has no beginning, although he's the beginning of everything, nor is he ever exhaustible, although everything is exhausted in due course of time. The living entities are created through the agency of the Father and killed through the agency of death. But he, the Lord, is perpetually free of birth and death. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. The supreme authority and inconceivable power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be minutely studied from this verse. He's always unlimited. That means he has no creation and no end. He is, however, death in the form of time, as described in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, I am death, I take away everything at the end of life. Mrityu sarva haraschaham, he says also in 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, kalosmi lokapchai krit prabindha, right? Famous verse. Lokan samahartam yaha prabhita, ritebitvam na pravachanti pravajanti sarve yavastita pratyanikesha yodha. Time I am the destroyer of the worlds. Yeah. So That's his feature as in his impersonal feature as time, the time factor. He's taking away everything at the end of life. Eternal time is also without beginning, Prabhupada explains, but it is the creator of all creatures. The example is given of touchstone, which creates many valuable stones and jewels, but does not decrease in power. Similarly, creation occurs many times, everything is maintained, and after a time, everything is annihilated. But the original creator, the Supreme Lord, remains untouched and undiminished in power. The secondary creation is made by Brahma, but Brahma is created by the Supreme Godhead. Lord Shiva annihilates the whole creation, but at the end, he is also annihilated by Vishnu. Lord Vishnu remains. This also is expressed in the Chatushloki of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the second canto. It is I who existed prior to the creation, I exist during, and it is I alone who remain after the creation, Krishna explains. In the Vedic hymns, it is stated that in the beginning there is only Vishnu and that he alone remains at the end. An example can help us to understand the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Lord. Now, this is where Srila Prabhupada gets a little more topical. He brings in, some, maybe not current events, but recent historical events, certainly very recent, in terms of cosmological time. In the history of warfare, the Supreme Personality of Godhead created a Hitler, and before that, a Napoleon Bonaparte, and they each killed many living entities in war. But in the end, Bonaparte and Hitler were also killed. People are still very much interested in writing and reading books about Hitler and Bonaparte and how they killed so many people in war. Year after year, many books are published for public reading regarding Hitler's killing thousands of Jews in confinement. But no one is researching who killed Hitler and who created such a gigantic killer of human beings. The devotees of the Lord are not much interested in the study of the flickering history of the world. They are interested only in him who is the original creator, maintainer, and annihilator. That is the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement. So here, Prabhupada is saying, history and even current events and so forth, they may have their place for you to just be able to navigate the material energy, but they aren't our primary focus. Our primary focus is Krishna. What's Krishna doing? Why does Krishna do what he does? What is his relationship with the devotees? What is his relationship with the non-devotees? How does eternal time act upon the living entities? Why is it that it's causing the birth, sustenance, and destruction of living entities one after another? Why are people deluded into thinking that if there is a supreme personality, that it's his responsibility for the sufferings of this material world, not ours? Why are people not seriously inquiring about the purpose of life and the meaning of life and what they should actually be doing with their existence, other than biding their time, waiting for death, and being distracted by so many nonsense activities? Why? People should be inquisitive. Atata Brahma Jigyasa. They have to come to this point asking why. Why am I here? There's always the little kid in school who, no matter what you would say to him, he'd say, why? Why? We can't be exactly like that either, because when we get an answer, we should reflect on it and try to understand it. Children, they'll hear some explanation for their question and say, yeah, but why? Because they're not comprehending necessarily. They have the mind of a child. But when one develops good intelligence, he should imbibe this Bhagavat Siddhanta and understand and see the world through the eyes of Shastra Chakshus, the vision of the Shastra, exactly what is going on here. Then to be able to understand. Then when we're faced with situations like the current event of the day, the pandemic, and not being able to mix freely because of so many unfortunate reactions in material nature, they can say, oh, well, here's an opportunity for me to hear and chant more about Krishna. and I'll do anything I can to increase my chanting. I'll go on Zoom. I'll dial a friend. I'll stay in touch one way or another. And I'll meditate and perform Harinam Yajna for the benefit of the entire world. People are suffering so much. The news is so heartbreaking to read. You know, frontline nurses are crying about what they're having to see every day. People are wringing their hands, wondering when will this stop, and so forth. The devotees know that, you know, the time factor is at work here. The reactions of the living entities, both on an individual and mass level, is taking place. And the best thing that we can do, in addition to practical things like take whatever medicine is available to protect the body and so forth, that's responsibility. That's acting responsibly. But the best thing to do, in addition to all one's regular duties, is to fully engage in hearing and chanting about Krishna. That will be the contribution of the Krishna consciousness movement. Prabhupada said that this Hare Krishna movement can save the world. That means that even in the midst of a pandemic, it can save the world. And we see, you know, I know devotees here in this community are going out on book distribution despite the personal risk. Of course, they wear masks and so forth. And one particular local book distributor, Adikarta Prabhu, who's kind of a hero of mine, you know, he got the vaccine early on, primarily because he wanted to be able to continue his book distribution. So he goes out all the time distributing books, and he's a very elderly fellow. We need to give people a chance to understand why they're suffering and how to end that suffering. You know, why am I here? What is life for? They can find out from the Hare Krishna devotees. They may find out partially from other persons, but they won't get the whole comprehensive picture. You know this word comprehensive. Comprehensive means clearly explained, with every factor considered. The comprehensive understanding of our existence and its purpose. That is available through these books. So Napoleon Bonaparte and Hitler aside, there's always some factor for taking away life, isn't it? Now, instead of, you know, arranging a war, I just have to send one little, it's actually a virus. Scientists aren't even in agreement whether or not it's a living organism. It's so tiny and so simple and yet complex at the same time. And it can't live without a host at all, practically speaking. Anyway, it's very strange. If you study the science behind viruses, it's mystifying how this thing can even be called life, but it is, obviously it is to some of us. But this little thing, you know, the man he's coming is full of muscles, he's very powerful, he's thinking I can defeat anybody, and this little submicroscopic thing enters through his nose, multiplies by the millions, and knocks him flat. How is that possible? And yet that's the material world. That's what this world consists of. So whether we go by that agency or by the agency of a plane crash or a car crash or cancer or old age or whatever, we're still subject to birth, old age, disease, and death. Regardless of the agent, it has to take place. The question is, while we're in good health, while we're in a sound mind, what are we going to do about that? What are we going to do? Maharaj Kulashekar, he's praying that while he's in sound mind, he's thinking, what am I going to do when my voice is choked with phlegm and my mind is disturbed at the time of death? You know, better that I, you know, leave it in sound mind. He's praying that at least that my mind can fix on your lotus feet, can be placed there and fixed there so that in good consciousness I can leave this world. That's Maharaj Kulashekhar's prayer. Krishna tvadiya parapankaja pankjaranta adhyaiva vishitume manasa rajahansa prana prayana samaye kapavata pitai kantavaro danavidho smaranam kutaste. There's a wonderful recording of Srila Prabhupada chanting that verse over and over. It's very nice. So Maharaj Kulashekar is praying that way. We should pray that way too. We should pray that way too. Are there any comments or questions? What time is it? It's 10 to 7 Central Time. Would anybody like to add something or ask a question or make a correction? This is your opportunity. And it will prove to me that you're actually alive out there. I see too many muted microphones. Say something. Talk to me.
Hare Krishna, devotee. So you can unmute yourself. You can turn your camera on also if you like, and you can share, ask if you have any questions, any comment. So we'll take few minutes to just have some Q&A.
I see you're on, Lal Gopal Prabhu. How are you? Where are you? I'm sure Lal Gopal Prabhu can say something about Maharaj Kulashekar.
Dandavad Prabhu, please accept
Hey,
my
Haribol.
Hari Hari.
Haribol. Wow, look at that beautiful tilak. Hare Krishna.
Sorry, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Thanks for the nice lecture and especially concluding with that beautiful Mukundamala Stotra. It's amazing that.
It's a wonderful meditation.
I've been reading Mukundamala with the purport, and I have a few other commentaries from Sri Vaishnavas.
Oh, very good.
It is really, really so beautiful and so deep. There's some of the slokas and stotra that they have written. Very nice, bro.
Do you have something that you'd like to share from those commentaries here right now? That would be really nice.
I mean, in English. Yeah, sure.
What can you do?
So when the one of the stotra where after the second stotra it is Jayatu Devo Devaki Nandanoyam Jayatu Krishna Vrishnivanti Pratipaha Jayatu Meka Kshamala Komalango Jayatu Prithvi Nara Naso Mukunda Mukunda Modna Pranipatya Yache. So in that sloka where Kulashekara is saying that 3 slokas are really classic slokas where he says that my dear Lord, it's like a conversation between Krishna and Kulashekara. Commentary is like it's not really. And then what is the purpose you are here and glorifying me? Krishna is asking to Kulashekara. Kulashekara is telling all glories to you, Krishna, all glories to you. Then Krishna is asking, that's enough. People come to me glorifying me, but tell me what you're really looking out. Do you want something from me? And then Kulashekara says that it says Naham, I'm forgetting this Mukunda Modna Pranipatya. Yeah, he says that I don't want anything. Maybe you want something relieved from this material world, go to heavenly planet, or you want to be free from hellish condition. So he says, no, I don't want to go to heavenly planet to enjoy the damsels of heaven, or I'm not afraid of going to a heavenly hellish condition to be suffered. Then what do you really need from me? Bhave. It says again and again, I like to take birth, doesn't mind, but Charanara Vinde Smaranam. He says that always let me remember your 2 lotus feet. That's all I'm looking for. So it's really very beautiful, this whole story. I was just relishing when you said this very nicely, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment, Lal Gopal Prabhu. Hare Krishna. You just elevated the whole class to another level.
No, Prabhu, sorry.
That's,
like a child,
that's really nice.
Child speaking in front of father. So please.
Oh, come on. Yeah, because I'm an old man only.
Not by age. by wisdom. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comment? If you're shy to say something, you can always write something in the chat box. That's also all right.
Yes, Prabhu, they might have some questions also. So if there is any, we can take that also probably.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. That was
Very well.
Prabhuji, I really like you made the comment about Krishna being a powerhouse. That is something really like, and we actually use that example, and I also read most of the time Srila Prabhupada also commented that as well. I don't have a question on that regard, but I just want to relate that that we often use that powerhouse information in the time when we are talking about Guru Parampara system as well, right? In Krishna, that the information is coming, like the electricity is generated from powerhouse, then it is going through different hops, step up transformers, step down transformers, and cable, and up to the electrical outlet of the house. Similarly, information is coming from Guru Parampara, the way it's generated from Krishna, from different sampradayas, and the teachers from there, that it is down to our level, to Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada to our Guru Maharaj, and then up to us. So that that's nice analogy, bro. Thanks for sharing that.
That's a good point. Just like the mantra won't act unless it's received in parampara. At least the full potency of the mantra, that won't act unless it's received in parampara. You have to receive from Guru. That's the principle.
Sure, bro.
So the idea being that you have to approach someone who's a realized soul and who's received the mantra and received transcendental knowledge himself or herself from another bona fide personality. This is very important in so many respects. It's important because the tradition is preserved also in that way, through the integrity of those personalities. It doesn't become, an overnight hodgepodge, as has happened in so many different circumstances when people just, pick and borrow what they find, what they like, and set aside what, requires, a little austerity or a little determination or a little sense control. I mean, I remember reading one exchange where a devotee was questioning. It's interesting because it's somewhat related. Devotee was questioning, well, what is it about these people that are chanting Hare Krishna that aren't in ISKCON, they aren't a member of our society? And Prabhupada he was very liberal. He said, well, they're imitating, so they're also getting the benefit. He was seeing that as a connection. And that, to me, that embodied the mercy of Mahaprabhu right there. That Lord Chaitanya is so merciful that directly or indirectly, you contact this movement, you get some spiritual benefit, and your path, at least your first steps on the path back to Godhead are actually taken at that. So that's very nice to keep in mind. That does not mean that we're freed of the responsibility to bring them the next step. That's very important. Otherwise, it can take a very long time. We used to chant in the morning. How did that go? Bhava Janma Kariyare Shravana Kirtanad Tavatanapoya Krishna Pare Premadana. If one is infested with the 10 offenses against the chanting of the holy names of the Lord, then despite his endeavors to chant the holy names for many births, he will not get the love of Godhead, which is the ultimate goal of this chanting. Very nice verse. So we have to help each other come to the platform of offenseless chanting. The benefit will still be there, even on the clearing stage. But to speak of the offensive state, there's still some benefit. But to actually help ourselves awaken our love of Godhead, we have to make progress in the chanting of the holy names. And part of that is to help others, bring everybody along. Whatever bring everybody along, it's so nice. Krishna consciousness is so nice because Prabhupada knew that his disciples, when they were going out, they weren't on the perfect platform. But he knew that the mercy of Mahaprabhu would be there by their efforts to help bring people along. He pointed out to little Saraswati, who was Malati's daughter, how she's going up to people and tugging on their, their skirt or their pant leg and looking up at them and saying, do you know who Krishna is? He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he said, this is perfect preaching. So we can tug on people's pant leg and say, do you know? Anyway, nice comment. Thank you.
Thank you, bro. Hari Krishna.
Anyone? Padamadish. Thank you. Anyone else have some comment they'd like to make? Any realizations? Anything you've read lately that has inspired you in Krishna consciousness? Now that we have so many hours that we have to spend away from the hustle and bustle.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thanks for the nice class.
Hey, Hare Krishna Prabhu.
So I have a question about Dhruva when he was annihilating or killing the yakshas, like Swayambhu Manu said, like how those impurities came to you. So I want to know more about like how those impurities came to Dhruva, like even though he was a great devotee and he saw Krishna face to face.
That's a very good question. Let me refer to Kuvera's own words on the matter. Dhruva Maharaj desisted from his fight. It's interesting that when he was fighting so gallantly that even the yakshas were applauding him. They like that. It's a different spirit in that day, Kshatriyas appreciating each other's prowess. This is what Kuvera says to him. And it's a very interesting and transcendental point of view. Now, these are Kuvera's people, the yakshas. So you have to, this also gives us a glimpse of the glorious nature of Kuvera himself as well. He says, we'll start here. The great sage Maitreya said, my dear Vidura, Dhruva Maharaj's anger subsided after hearing Swayambhu Manu's speech, and he completely ceased killing yakshas. When Kuvera, the most blessed master of the treasury, learned this news, he appeared before Dhruva. While being worshipped by yakshas, kinnaras, and charanas, he spoke to Dhruva Maharaj, who stood before him with folded hands. The master of the treasury, Kuvera, said, O sinless son of a Kshatriya, I am very glad to know that under the instruction of your grandfather, you have given up your enmity, although it is very difficult to avoid. I am very pleased with you. Actually, you have not killed the yakshas, nor have they killed your brother, for the ultimate cause of generation and annihilation is the eternal time feature of the Supreme Lord. And he goes on to talk about misidentifying oneself as I and you on the basis of bodily concept of life. And then he blesses him. My dear Dhruva, come forward. May the Lord always grace you with good fortune. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond our sensory perception, is the supersoul of all living entities, and thus all entities are one, without distinction. Begin, therefore, to render service under the transcendental form of the Lord, who is the ultimate source of all living entities. Engage yourself fully. And he goes on explaining like that. So, and then it's offering any benediction that he wants. The point being that Dhruva Maharaj has a Kshatriya spirit, and that Kshatriya spirit was present when he was 5 years old. And that nature doesn't disappear because one becomes a pure devotee. When Dhruva Maharaj found out that his son was killed by this yaksha, he went and he attacked the yaksha kingdom seeking justice. Unfortunately, it led to the killing of many yakshas, and he had to be stopped before he annihilated the entire yaksha race. And so one could say, yes, here's a pure devotee who made a mistake. On the other hand, one could also say, here's a pure devotee who, by his nature, felt compelled to fight, overstepped his bounds, and as soon as he received instruction in the right way, he pulled back. You see? The test of his pure devotion was, at this point, to recognize, oh yes, I should not do this. I have to listen to authorities and understand that my anger can be curtailed. You know, it's actually a mistake to think that devotees don't become angry. They don't, that's mentioned somewhere else here too. Actually, in the story of Dhruva Maharaj, if I could remember exactly where, but Prabhupada talks about that. You know, we take this emotion of anger as a fault, and we know that Arjuna became angry to fight and so forth. But people do have their natures; they do have their personalities, and those are imperfect so long as they're not engaged in devotional service. You know, when one engages in devotional service, he restricts himself from sinful activities. It doesn't mean he becomes this emotionless automaton that just repeats, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'll do whatever you want me to do. What do you want me to do next? And doesn't think for himself, doesn't wonder what I should do next. There's some questioning. Sometimes someone can go off in the wrong direction. There are lots of examples in ISKCON of people who, I'm reading this book, I'll Build You a Temple. I don't know if you have it there in the St. Louis community. It's the account of the development of the Juhu temple in Mumbai by His Holiness Giriraj Swami. And at one point, a couple of disciples of Srila Prabhupada took it upon themselves, in spite of repeated letters from Prabhupada saying, do not give in to Mr. Nair. Mr. Nair was a person selling the property. Do not agree to his, don't be intimidated by him. He's barking, there's no bite. We have the strong position because he's already ceded a possession of the property, and he accepted money from us. So even though he may be, posturing, doesn't really mean anything, but they thought, he's being really belligerent, this Mr. Nair, and the property isn't that great anyway. And so they actually turned around and said, and informed Mr. Nair through his attorney that we didn't want the property anymore, which was a huge setback. You have to read it. It's very interesting history. And for something like a year or two afterwards, when Prabhupada had people coming and visiting him, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj was there, he said, and let me introduce you to my foolish disciple who turned over who turned the property back to Mr. Nair. But we got the property ultimately. Prabhupada knew exactly how to counter the situation. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj is a pure devotee. So how to explain? But at that moment, he's a little bewildered by circumstances. These things happen by way of instruction. We can learn from that situation. Just like we can learn from this activity of Dhruva Maharaj overstepping the bounds of his responsibilities as a Kshatriya towards other living entities, is a wonderful teaching example. And it gave Kuvera a chance to make an exposition on transcendental knowledge. It gave Swayambhuva Manu an opportunity. It gave Dhruva Maharaj the opportunity to manifest one particular quality that you rarely see in a Kshatriya, and that's humility. He said, oh yes, that was a big mistake of mine. Usually you pinch a Kshatriya's prestige and you're liable to get your head chopped off. That was the very beginning, wasn't it? Dhruva Maharaj was so offended at age 5 that he said, that's it, I'm out of here. his prestige was pinched a little bit by a stepmother, you know, a nonsense stepmother. So anyway, those are some reflections on my point. Does that help any, or what would you like to add on that subject? Because it is an interesting question. How do you see it?
Can you also like understand, like it could be Krishna's will, like he want to annihilate yakshas? Is that also a right understanding?
Yeah, perhaps. I get the feeling that may be, but that's not really explicitly described here. Because after all, Swayambhuva Manu is telling him stop. You know, he's saying, no, you've really gone too far. So the thing about warfare is that it can accelerate, isn't it?
Yep.
I mean, if again, now I'm speculating on the Bhagavatam and I shouldn't, but suppose the Yakshas brought this man forward and said, this is the person who killed you, you know, but that's not what happened. So, you know, one thing leads to another, and the very nature of conflict is that it can increase exponentially, kind of like this present day virus. It's odd that they're using an analogy of war right now. He said, you know, authorities are saying this is war. This is war on the virus. And okay, let's see who wins. But, you know, war has that tendency. And then if you're engaged in it, it can definitely affect your judgment. Now, I'm not giving that as an excuse for any transcendental personality to go on a killing spree because of this circumstance. I'm not saying Dhruva Maharaj was right to do it, but to me, at least, standing, you know, aside from all these wonderful instructions and just knowing human nature, it's very easy for things to get out of hand. You know, he goes, he's challenging them. The yakshas come running out, and pretty soon you have, you know, it's not just that him attacking, it becomes a full-blown battle. You know, they're manifesting mystical powers to confuse him and bewilder him. They're applauding his efforts, saying how wonderful it is. He's shooting 3 arrows at a time. He's filling the sky with arrows, and they're filling the sky with arrows to try to kill him. You know. So,
also like the point you made about humility, Vaishnava quality in Dhruva Maharaj. Thank you.
Yeah, there's that nice verse. Actually, Jayadvaita Swami was making a comment on it the other day. Yeah, of course. 13:8. He was saying in relationship to this verse that this verse also indicates a process of transcendental knowledge. It's that famous 4, 8, 9, 10, the famous 5 verses in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, beginning with amanatvam, adambitvam, humility, pridelessness, nonviolence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master. He was talking about this verse in terms of like a process of knowledge. And that process of knowledge begins with humility. A prerequisite for any sort of knowledge is that one puts himself, just like Arjuna said, now I'm your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you, please instruct me. That process of transcendental knowledge for Arjuna began with amanatvam. And it proceeded with pridelessness, nonviolence, tolerance, simplicity, and approaching a bona fide spiritual master. Right there. And then everything else comes: cleanliness, steadiness, self-control. because those proceed from the instructions received from a spiritual master. Right? Anyway, it was a nice comment.
Thank you,
So
Prabhu.
we talked about
Yes.
how building a temple.
Yes.
So I'm just showing up on the screen that I have 40 copies of the book.
Oh, please, everybody purchase this book. It's so fantastic.
So I haven't ever shared it, but if anybody would like to, basically, yes, Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a marvelous history. There's nothing boring about it. There are all kinds of insights into preaching. There are all kinds of insights into congregation building. There are insights into human nature, how to get along with devotees, how to please one's spiritual master, how to avoid making mistakes on the path of devotional service. And at the same time, it's a totally engaging story. They went to Juhu. Prabhupada wanted that property when it became available. And at that time, Juhu was way on the outskirts of Mumbai. It was a jungle with rats the size of cats. And there was a fishing village there, and the place just smelled of fish, and it was, strewn with junk. And, the devotees there were putting up with so many austerities. The mosquitoes were eating them alive. They were living in huts, but they did it because their spiritual master wanted them to do it. And the result is what you see today, that wonderful Juhu temple. And it was all based upon Srila Prabhupada's transcendental vision, how to spread Krishna consciousness, and his disciples' tenacious attachment to serving him. It's a wonderful book, and you'll be very inspired. I have a hard time putting it down. I find myself, sometimes reading it till way past my bedtime because it's so good. You'll really like it. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yeah, it was unplanned, but since you brought about the book, one of his disciples sent me 40 copies of the book, and I still have those with me.
Yeah.
So if anybody would like to get a copy, I paid for all, but there is no fixed cost. Whatever donation you can give, you can give.
Yeah,
read.
that's really nice. Well done, Ramacharya. Haribol.
Hari. So
Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
if there is any comment, last one or two comments anybody has, please feel free to share or ask as you like. Yes, Prabhuji, please go ahead. You were saying something. Sorry to interrupt. You were saying something, Prabhu.
Oh, me? Oh, no.
Okay.
No, that's quite all right.
Okay, sounds like everybody is very happy, and there might not be any comment or question at this point, sounds like.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for coming and giving us your association.
Thank you for giving me your association.
No.
This is going both ways. I'm here basically isolating. It's been raining here steadily for like 2 months. Our yard is a swamp. And now that Delta variant has come up, and we're, hunkering down again for a little while and praying for the welfare of all the living entities, because it's such a hard time. And to be able to see your smiling, blissful face, Lal Gopal's face, and the other contributors, thank you so much. It's very inspiring to me.
Now, Prabhuji, so if you can come on Janmashtami, we are going to do Nam Yagya. Just FYI, we'll talk offline. I know that you are far away, but if you are this way, please visit us, and I would like to hear Kirtan. It was wonderful that you started chanting. So
I disappeared from the St. Louis scene years and years ago, but I always think about St. Louis. I have to tell you, it never leaves my mind. I feel anyway.
No, I think
let me put it this way without sounding sentimental. I pray that one day I will come back and help out in some way. It's a very special place with wonderful Vaishnavas. It's a very
Thank you so
special
much
place.
for
Hare
saying
Krishna.
like that. Thank you. So we'll try to see if there is any other last minute comment, just for like few seconds. If not, then I'll chant Vaishnava Pranams and then we'll adjourn tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, one coincidence, Prabhuji. So we have a evening Bhagavatam session, and we have been reading Bhagavatam Monday to Friday.
Oh, that's nice.
And then no, Monday to Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday we have Chaitanya Charitamrita. So we are in fourth canto and just finished.
Are you serious?
No,
Oh my
no,
gosh. I had no idea.
There are so many devotees here who are part of our evening recitation. You can talk to anyone.
So I just rehashed everything you've already
Yes.
went over.
So this is so nice. This is
Everybody's
so
looking at me thinking, why is he? We were already on that.
no, I mean this is so nice because we started, reading about Prithu Maharaj pastime, and he, Prithu Maharaj basically, chastising the Mother Earth. That's what we are in, and we just finished reading Dhruva's pastime. So it was just coincidence. Also, this book has been with me from like 2-3 months, 40 copies of it. And you suddenly brought about it, and I thought, okay, since you're talking about it, let me show devotees if they would be interested to.
Yeah, you open that cover and start reading it, and you'll realize what a gem it is. Everybody, please get a copy if you can. It's, I'm not a tout. Don't worry. It's not. It's like, like in India, if you go like to Jaipur or something, the touts will come up to you, and they'll say, "Oh, you'll have to come over here to my shop. This shop over here is very good. Please come with me." They'll drag you over there. And then after they drag you over there, someone will give them a little money for bringing you over there. It's not like that. It's a really good book.
Thank you so much, and hope you can come again soon.
Yeah, so too.
And give us your association. It's going to be festive time.
I will be coming for your association.
We can have some virtual, kind of classes.
It's a two-way street.
Radhastami is coming, and then also we have so many festivals coming. So maybe I'll approach you to.
I have to tell you, this is the first time in months that I sat down and well, we had one event here before the latest contagion arose. We observed the departure of Jayadvaita Swami's mother, Gloria, who passed away recently. Very nice lady. She'd been to India a few times with her illustrious son, and just a wonderful person. She passed away this year, not from COVID, just from old age. And so we had a bunch of devotees over and we were chanting here. But now things have gone dark again because of the latest resurgence. And aside from that, this is one of the few times I've got to engage in bhajan, even though virtually, with some devotees. It was really nice. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
I feel I've been doubly and triply blessed by your association, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
So powerful to have your association. I'm in Sikh, Prabhu. So we'll chant Vaishnava Pranams. You would like to chant, or you would like me to chant?
The Vaishnava, meaning the Mangalacharan?
No, just Vaishnava Pranams.
Okay. Vancha kalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha ananta koti vaishnav brinda ki
Jai. His Grace Panchatattva Prabhu ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya, His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. Dissemble Bhakti Vrinda ki Jai. Ananta Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Dandot Pranams, Prabhuji. Dandot Pranam to everybody. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, please, everyone.